Hello, and welcome to Knitting the Notes with Dr. B. Today I wanted to talk about some basic setup at the piano. The first thing, of course, is to think about the height that you want to sit at the piano, or the height that you want your student to sit at the piano. Ideally, you'd want your feet to be on the floor, so if a student is not able to do that, you would want to have something to support their feet, a book, a footstool, a turned up basket of some sort, or a little box, because it's very difficult for students to maintain good posture if they're sitting unbalanced on a piano bench. And of course, the height of the bench should allow for your arms to be more or less parallel to the floor. And if that isn't possible, if some people have adjustable stools, little round adjustable stools, or adjustable piano chairs, you could use a phone book or some magazines stacked up, or those carpet square remnants. Since my adjustable piano chair is in my office currently, I use this cushion from Aldi's combined with a stadium cushion to get myself at a good height for playing the piano. And you could actually get a couple of these when they're available on sale and use them with your students as well. Well, that gets my arm more or less parallel to the floor. As far as distance, you would like to be, many students you will see do this, which is a good thing to check their distance. You want to be able to stand up from where you're sitting, and you want your arm to be at something slightly greater than a 90-degree angle. So that takes care of the height and the distance. In my experience, sometimes I adjudicate events, and high school students are often likely to be sitting too close, and I always feel that maybe from the age of 6 they never adjusted their bench. So my recommendation sometimes to people is that at the beginning stages, every time you move up to the next level of method book, just have a look and see if your student needs to adjust the position of their bench. And maybe in high school or in middle school and high school, when they're no longer in a method book, maybe just check it once a year, or check it at the beginning of the school year and at Christmas time if they're having a growth spurt, so that they always have the optimal distance at the piano, which allows them to freely use their arms and it doesn't get in the way of whatever they're trying to do at the piano. Now, hand position can be a little bit dicey because a lot of the analogies that they give in various places lead to maybe a slightly more curved hand shape than you really want to have. So the best idea I've ever come across is that the crown of your head is a good model for your hand shape. So if you put your hand on the crown of your head, it's a little confusing, that should be a good hand shape. Of course, you're not going to be able to maintain that exact shape all the time you're playing. That's not the idea. But that allows for your fingers to move freely from the top knuckle joint here, which some people call the metacarpal phalangeal joint, but I find that a little awkward to say over and over again. But you want your fingers to move as a unit most of the time from that top knuckle joint, just describing part of an arc toward the palm of your hand. And that's the most efficient, and you can do that really quickly, the most efficient and effective way to use your fingers, because as opposed to the idea of lifting your finger and then striking down, the keys aren't up here, the keys are down here. So coming down is going to be the most natural thing to do. Also, if you, some people will explain to you that this motion, using this raising your finger motion, there's certain fingers that can't go up as high as other fingers because the tendons are connected pretty quickly back here. But when you do this with your hand, this grabbing motion, which is your natural motion, that's what you do when you grab the handles of your grocery bags and everything, all those tendons are separate. So there's nothing getting in the way of using your fingers quickly and strongly if you go like this. But this is less effective. I like to use an unsharpened pencil to demonstrate to students how their fingers and hands should work. I mean, their thumb and their fingers should work, also their hands. The thumb tends to go this way best. It doesn't go up and down that easily. So you want to use your thumb in a natural way and just have it go like this, and your fingers go like this. And when you pick up a pencil, that's exactly what happens. Your thumb goes this way, and your fingers go that way. Seymour Bernstein, in his book, which I'll talk about in another video, he has exercises where students actually use a pencil to feel where the escapement level is on a key, and that helps them develop a sensitivity for that. I have these balls here because in the John and Mary Gay George Artistry at the Piano method, they recommend building these muscles here in your hand by taking a ball, holding it with the palm down as you would when you're playing the piano, and squeezing it very gently, just for a few seconds. You don't want to strain anything. However, this is not an example of a good hand shape for playing the piano. This is too rounded and too curved. But this is a good exercise for building up strength here in the metacarpal phalangeal joint. And in my collection of balls, I have very decrepit rubber balls and a bouncy ball and a nice big hand felted wool ball. And somewhere in my life I have or used to have cush balls, because Suzuki piano teachers, some of them believe that playing with a cush ball, those little ones that are all fluffy, with the rubber fluff, if you want to call it fluff, develop sensitivity in their fingertips. So if I refine mine, I'll bring them in. Tim Topham, and I believe he got this idea from somebody else as well, uses the stress toy ladybugs, because they tend to fit fairly nicely in the palm of your hand to have you feel for that nice arm shape, nice hand shape, arched hand shape, and you can squeeze on them as well. But again, the squeeze part is not a good hand shape. This is a good hand shape with just your fingers relaxed like that. So to sum up, oh nope, we're not summing up yet, sorry. Then to practice this, again, 5 finger patterns, or any kind of patterns you like. If you like 3 black keys with a couple of white keys on top, or the 5 black keys or whatever. Because years ago I taught at a music school in Central Florida where the director wanted the students to all participate in guild auditions, I started teaching my students the 5 finger patterns very quickly, and they can learn them by rote without too much trouble, a couple a week, it's not a big deal. So again, tying into my previous episode with aligning the arm behind the finger that plays, you start with your arm behind your thumb and let your thumb move naturally, then adjust to your arm behind finger 2. The finger is on the key and it just goes down. You can say it's describing an arc. You could all use all kind of big words, but the finger is on the key and puts the key down. It also helps to think the key is causing a hammer to strike a string. So what you're doing is you're lifting a hammer to strike a string. Arm goes behind finger 4, arm goes behind finger 5, and it isn't a dramatic movement. It's just a very subtle movement. But in the end, when you're playing with your thumb, your arm will be over here, and when you're playing with your 5th finger, your arm will be over here. A lot of people feel that fingers 4 and 5 are the weak fingers, but if your arm is aligned behind those fingers, they are not weak fingers, and they can do anything any other finger can do. So there. We're starting to get more Canadian wildfire smoke, I think, beginning to be in the air. So to sum up, you want to be sure you're at a good height, at a good distance. Your arm is slightly greater than a 90-degree angle. You're able to stand up from where you're sitting. Your hand shape is related to the crown of your head. You can also do it, some people prefer to have your arm at a relaxed place down here. Bring it up, turn it over. That's a nice hand shape as well. And then your thumb moves this way and your fingers move that way. And on Monday, I'm going to talk a little bit more about these technical things, loud and soft, how those are achieved, and things like that. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining me on Knitting the Notes with Dr. B.